Magic makers. I don't know about you. I know that I've had a career change. And when I did have a career change and I told my husband I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, he literally rolled his eyes at me and walked out of the room. We have a woman here, just Jennessa Durrani, who works with women just like you who wake up in their midlife and they're like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Or, hey, by the way, you're laid off. And so here's the opportunity for you to reinvent yourself. Or three, maybe you stayed home, took care of the kids for X number of years, and now you're ready to be like, what does mom do now? What's my second, third, 20th chapter? So we brought Jennessa on the show because I'm sure many of you are feeling like this. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. And that is absolutely the world that I feel like everyone I know, like my hottest Instagram post lately was, do you know what you want to be when you grow up? And everyone's like, no, I'm still figuring that out and so forth. And I think it used to be that we felt like we were the only ones that had that feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
now realizing like, no, this is a thing. And it's rough. It's rough because we're good at doing all the things and being on top of it. And that's showing that you
You're
might
not.
not have, yeah, exactly.
Well, I laugh about this because I think about it, especially our generation, we were like that second wave who went to college. And you always felt like, at least I did, naively, felt that when I was 18, I was going to determine what I was going to do for my 25 years to get my gold watch and, retire off into the sunset. Yet, I've had multiple career iterations and no, like even college doesn't tell you like, hey girl, you might be going to school for nursing or marketing or whatever, but maybe in 10 years, you're going to make a left turn or a right turn, or maybe hell, you're still going to be doing this. And I don't think we discussed that.
No. And I think for me, my own father had the same job
Yes.
from day one
Hmm.
until the gold watch
Yeah.
and retired. And that was the thing. I remember I got an award in my first job and I like sent him a picture of it and he's like, oh, you should save that in case you ever look for another job. And I was like, in case? Like, oh my God, is this what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life? And in my situation, I chose my profession, my first profession, when I was 10.
Ah.
I stood up at Debbie Seabrook's birthday party and declared to all the girls there in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, that I was moving to the big city to become an interior designer. I was never getting married because I wasn't making dinner for anyone, but I was going to adopt a daughter and I was going to name her Brooklyn. And we were going to live in Brooklyn, of
Brooklyn.
course. And so I did everything, high school, middle school, high school, everything, college, went to design school. Everything was on this. Like I had blinders on.
Mm.
Everyone in the world was like, they don't get paid much. Like, who do you think you are moving to, I was going to have to move 1,500 miles away, so on and so forth. I did everything to get to my dream job. And I did. And I was loving it until I didn't.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
What the
crap,
hell?
I don't, what, no one talks about dreaming forward. Like you have one
Mm-mm.
thing, you pick the one thing, and that's what you're going to do, and so forth. And mine came earlier. So I have been iterating for 25 years, but many have held on, or they took the hiatus for I'm going to be a parent. And
Mm-hmm.
then that gave them the reprieve, like, I don't love doing that anyway. So this is, and then they come back and are like, well, now what?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. And then there's this whole fallacy around the fact, like, I paid good money for this college degree, or my parents paid
Yes.
good money for this college degree. So I, I
I
have
should
to
be
use
loving
it.
this, right? I should be
Yeah,
loving this.
and I need to use it even if I hate it. Like this is things that the professions that are available to us now didn't even exist when we went to
No,
college.
no,
Like we didn't,
no.
none of this was even a thing. There was like five or six things that people did when
Right.
they came out of school
Doctor,
back then.
lawyer, engineer, some type of factory work. Like that's all that you could potentially be when you grew up. Because I remember I went to business school and I always loved the gym. I always loved working out. But back then, the only thing I could do with fitness was be a gym teacher. And I was like, well, I ain't gonna be a gym teacher. And I just literally just like pushed it aside because I was like, that's not what I want to be.
Exactly. And so, and no one is there saying like, oh, these are your skills. This is your superpower. This is your zone of genius and so forth. They're like, we had a book, like our guidance counselor gave us an aptitude test of
Oh
like, I don't
yeah.
know where that, and it came out. And I remember this kid that I graduated with, it said on his aptitude test, it said clergy. I'm like, that's not really something that we like
Right.
aptitude
That's not
into.
an
That's seemingly a
aspirational job.
call. Yeah,
Yeah, like
exactly.
you kind of like just say you declared at the birthday party, like you kind of know if you feel called to go and
Exactly.
do that work.
And then otherwise we had the book of like all the professions and then
Code
what they
was,
would make and so
yeah.
forth. And it was like a friend of mine who was like wicked smart. She just went through and found the one that like had the most amount of money and was like, that's what I'll do. And I'm just like, I all of this seems wrong. Like it just seemed backwards even then. But I was sure. I was sure that this is what I was going to be doing when I was, 93. Like I was going to love it so much. I was going to just do it forever and
Oh
ever.
yeah, I was going to write the next like plop plop fizz fizz commercial. That was what my job was going to
I
be.
love it.
Yep. And I remember I was at this point I was like 21 and I was living in New York at the time and I took the train into the city for my internship. I literally looked around and I was like, I saw people who were probably in their 30s but looked like 500. And I was like, is this my life? Is this my life? Like, I'm going to wake up at the crack of dawn, get on this train, commute into the city, hoof it from wherever it was from the train station to my job, and then come back again. I'm like, is this my life? And I just was like, I always had that feeling. Yeah, like I didn't know any different. I never liked the 9 to 5. I knew that about myself. Like I hated someone telling me like you need to be here at this time and you can't leave until this time. Even if you've done everything I've asked you to do, you can't leave. And I was like,
Exactly.
I'm like, what is that all about?
I even now when my friends are like, "Oh, I was 5 minutes late, so I have to stay 5 minutes early." I'm like, or 5 minutes late. I'm like, is that still a thing? Like, aren't we just like
Yes.
working towards our value and so forth? And that's what I want everyone to be able to get to, where they're not like
Looking at the clock.
beholden to a, like I have to put my time in. The other concept is that we grew up with this idea that work had to be hard. You got to
Yes.
work hard.
I have to
So it's
hustle,
like
grind.
if you're not like depleted by the end of the day,
Oh God,
then
yeah.
really did you was that useful? Did you actually work? Like it's okay to like be energized at the end of your workday. Like what a concept to
Right.
have that.
Or have enough energy to want to play with your kids. Or hey, if your spouse was like, hey, do you want to go to a movie? You're not like, I'm exhausted. Let's just watch Netflix.
Exactly. Exactly. I just and living for that weekend, like, it's kind of like you want to create the life that you're not wanting to take a vacation from.
Yeah.
Like vacation should be bonus, not like a place where you're going and
You're
trying
you're
to
on the calendar
re-pump
like
up.
counting down the days.
Exactly. Because I'm going to have the life will be literally sucked out of me by that day. And so I'm going to have to go and like pump myself up.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So, now everyone who's listening here, like, I'm hoping that you don't feel this way. But if you are feeling this way, that is why I brought her on the show so that we can help you figure this stuff out. Whether maybe you're sitting here listening at work and you're just like, this place fucking sucks. Or maybe you're, your kids are, going to college or they're going into high school and they're not going to need you around as much. And maybe you're like, what should mom do? Or maybe you got what a lot of people got. Hey, your job has been, I can't remember what the new politically correct term is, but you're no longer needed. So get the hell out and we'll give you 2 weeks give you 2 weeks severance. Good luck.
exactly. So in all of those situations, where do you go from here? I think even if you came on listening thinking, I think everything is fine. There's so many women I talk to that like, don't get me wrong, Jennessa. I love my life. I have a good job. It pays me well. I have a nice house. I have beautiful kids. we have the 2 cars, the picket fence and so forth. But, and that always gives me like
Yeah.
goosebumps.
Because you're like,
But
there's that like
there's
hole.
that like that edge of like, but I want more. And
Mm,
there's this feeling that more is like they're being gluttonous. Like,
mm,
how would you need more than this? This is perfectly fine. And it's like, why can't we have a life of and instead of
yes.
but? Like, why can't we have a job? And I hate the word job because job just seems like work. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, why can't we have a role
Oh, I like
that
that.
pays us, but also gives us that flexibility, that gives us an opportunity to make an impact? I feel like at this age, we're at this place of like, just getting a job isn't enough. Like, I want to actually be useful. And I want
Yeah.
to, especially to all the moms out there who have been at home and have been like, holy hell, I have given and given and given and given. And now they're leaving me, the
Yeah.
audacity of them to leave me. And now what am I going to do? And you
Yeah.
have to channel. And I feel like so many women just stay busy so
Yeah.
that they don't have to think about this. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen. You're going to transition. Even if you love your job right now, you're going to go into retirement. And we all know the people in retirement. There are those who are playing Candy Crush and solitaire all damn day.
Yeah.
To what end? Like, we want to have usefulness, we want to have an impact, we want to give back, and we want to. So even if you came on and thought, no, I'm all set, I want everyone to just be aware of how much we do just automatically.
Mm.
Like, it's kind of like you getting on the train. I had the same experience. I was on the train. I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do for the freaking, like, it was fun for a while. Like, I come from
Right.
a town of 1,700 people in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. Having a subway that takes me to work, I was pretty darn cool until it was like, oh my gosh, I feel like we're just zombies, like walking, you get off and you just all following each other and so forth. And I think we have to stop. It's almost like you have to clap your hands and be like, I got to wake up. Similar to what you were saying. We wake up one day and it's like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
This isn't what I had planned. And I think that everyone is exactly where they're supposed to be right now, but I want them to have the awareness to then choose where they go next. Because there's a lot of things that circumstances, we've moved, people have divorced, we got this job, we moved here, we had kids, like things that we couldn't have ever determined when we made our life plan of like,
At
me not
18.
wanting to, yeah, me not wanting to make dinner for everyone. And I'm going to, adopt a child and so forth. Clearly, a lot of those things changed along the way, um, and for the better. But there are times when we just wake up and like, how did I get here? And
Oh,
is this where I want to? Where do I want to go next? And that's where so many women, I feel, are in this place of like, I know that this isn't it. They can't quite
yeah.
put their fingers on, and so we focus on so often what we don't want. I'm sure this is with your clients as well. I don't want to be exhausted anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to be weak anymore. I don't want to weigh this much anymore. I don't want all the things. But the way our subconscious mind works is that it doesn't understand the negative. So it just hears, I want to be tired.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be bored. I want to weigh this much and so forth. And so it goes out and looks for all the opportunities to keep you right where it is. So the first step is really just understanding, what do you actually want?
Yeah.
I want more fulfillment. I want more flexibility. I want more time. I want more connection. There's so many people that came home to work and that works for some, and for some it doesn't. And so what is it that you actually want? And then you can start focusing on where that is and so forth.
It's funny. The other part is like you say what you actually want. And I think a lot of people don't ever take the time to like dig in there, because you might get this surface level answer of like, I want my kids to be happy. I want a happy home. I want this, I want that. And to me, like, for my fitness girls, I call that squishy goals, right? Those are so like pie in the sky goals. Like literally, like if we were closed doors and no one was going to judge you, truly, what would you want? And maybe it is that declaration that you said, like, I want to be an interior decorator, or, I want to be a circus tamer, whatever it is, like underneath all the like nice to have layers, like truly, like if you had to do this for the rest of your life for the next 10 years, does that, like having the nice house, the car, light you up? Or would you rather sit in a tree house and paint for the next 10 years?
And that's where that is, why it's easy to kind of go with all that like surface level, is because then we have to, if we say it out loud as to what we really want, there's a lot of change, a lot of things that we have to let go of or embark out on, and it gets real scary real fast.
Yeah.
So like when I work in my framework that I work with women, I'm like, we don't get to talk about how until week 6.
Mm,
There's no how. We don't worry, because if you go to how on week 1, you might as well have not have come,
right.
because you're not going to get anywhere, because there's always this like fear of, we talk a lot about fear of failure. Like, oh,
Right.
if I say I want to do that and it doesn't work out. No, that's not what people are afraid of. They're afraid of, holy shit, I'm actually going to do this. And then
Right.
who's going to feed my family? And oh my gosh, I like am responsible for this. And how would I be able to do this? We go to this place of, it's
Right.
gotten so big before we, just from the I want and fill in the blank, it like fills us with fear. So it's just easier to be like, I just want everyone to be happy. Just want
Yeah.
everyone to be happy. Just want to have connection with people. And a lot of women who come to me say that they're coming just because they want a passion project,
Mm,
because that's easy. Like let's add on something over here. If we add on, then we don't have to deal with what is actually already in our life and so forth. And
right.
so, but by the end, it's
Th-
like we've peeled it back and really got to the place where, oh my gosh, like this is really what I want. And they get to the place where they understand why. This is, I'm sure, also with the women that you work with. If you don't
Yeah.
have a why,
Oh,
you're gonna give up on day 2. It's like it reaches, you have to have it hit that place that you're like, now I'm willing to do, now we can worry, though how is not even a big deal in week 6, because we are so charged up that this is what I'm meant to do and I have to do it. Like it is my, I don't like to use purpose, because I feel like we all have had different purpose, kind of similar to what you were saying. For the next 5 years, this is what we can all have chunks of. This is what I'm called to do right now.
right.
It doesn't have to be a forever thing and so forth. But it gets to the place where I get them so charged up on this is what I need to do, that then it makes the doing it less scary than week 1, when they were, I don't know, like maybe I just need a little bit more, I need a hobby because I'm
Right.
just not fulfilled.
Yeah. But I also feel like, everything you said, I hear a lot, even on the weight loss side, is that it's because one, they might perceive it to be too hard. But also for you on the job side, I'm being selfish because I might be taking time away from the family. I might be selfish because I might have to ask that someone cook dinner on Tuesday night so that I can go to class or I can do whatever it is that I do. And my role has always been, chief house organizer. And now I have to ask for help and support. And I hope that women listening have that type of family who's like, hey girl, you do you, versus, oh wow, oh that's going to be a big shift, that's going to be a problem, I hope that women listening have that problem, or maybe in my head I feel like I can't ask.
That, I think that's where it is, because obviously, if probably even with me, if my husband all of a sudden said, I'm no longer going to mow and I need you to help mow. I'd be like, well, what the hell? I don't want to have to mow. That's your job, right?
Right.
But then, so our instant reaction is always anytime there's a change in our families, the instant reaction is like, ow. And then I feel like we like back up right away. And
Right.
so then we're like, oh no, 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 I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to like, but what I came to realize with my own family is that I was the one who was keeping them dependent upon me.
Yes.
I kept
Yes.
thinking that what is wrong with these people? Why can't they figure this out? Until I wanted them to figure it out. And then I realized I kept stepping in and just doing it for them because
Yes.
I was controlling what I didn't trust. And I didn't trust that they could do it right. So I was just doing it myself. And so for me, I realized that I was doing them an absolute disservice. Like I actually started doing more work outside of my house, even because I worked from home for 23 years. I've so that I couldn't be here, so that they
Mhm.
had to figure it out because they are going to be going out into the world on their own. And I'm my oldest son emphatically declared the other day that none of us can come to college with him, even though there has been a lot of discussion. Like maybe we could just move with you. So we can't go with them. And so I do think that there is this, it's like a mathematical equation. We
Right.
think that, you know, our time for ourselves plus the time for them is is all there is. And we everything that we give to ourselves, that's subtracting from what we can give to them. When in actuality, I like to think of it as a multiplication, that the more we give to ourselves, the more we can give to them. And thus it will make it all better, you know, in the long run. And we need to model, like, we need to model the behavior that we want our children to have for themselves and for their spouses going forward, that everyone needs to be able to do the work that they want to do in the world and, and have the ability to do that.
So I want to come back to what you said, which I feel is uh, a majority of the people listening here is that we want to help. However, we don't let our families or whoever you're going to support actually do the job. I feel the need to hop in and micromanage that, say it could be as simple as grocery shopping. And maybe there are some specific brands that you really just want. And other times you can give a shit. And I feel like, sometimes it's like, you're texting at the store, make sure you buy the one with the green label, not the purple label, and this, or cooking, like, oh, make sure you chop the garlic in this particular way or not that way and put the garlic in before the onion or whatever. And I feel that a lot of the people who you're asking are like, you know what, do I want to put up with that shit?
Exactly. And there were so many times that I did jump in. I was like, no, 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 that's wrong. That then all of them just got very wary. Like, I can't touch that. So
Right.
I'll just keep hands off. And it isn't because they didn't want to help. It was like they were scared to help. And so I had to, I remember when I had my first son, I had a C-section. And so then I couldn't like lift any, for
Right,
whatever the
right.
2 weeks and so forth. So I was like, I have to, like, our laundry was in the basement. So I'm like, my husband was going to have to do the laundry and so forth. And it was hard because is he going to sort it the way that I would
Right.
do?
Am I
Is he
gonna
going,
have like clothes this big?
exactly. It's like, all the things. But then I realized, like, do I want to be doing this right now? No. Like, I have to, like, my kids, as long as they put their clothes away, as stuffed in as they may be and so forth,
Have
it,
to look
it
away.
still gives me, it does still give me pause. Like, I won't be like, oh, not even a big deal. But the reward of them doing it so that I don't have to is,
Far greater.
and there's always going to be the things that, like, I won't give up. Yeah, like this is my piece, that is your piece, and so forth.
Right.
But no, I definitely think that even if those who are listening aren't consciously thinking it right now, I would get awareness around how much are you kind of controlling the narrative. And in my family, what was even more detrimental was that I wanted to keep the peace.
Mm,
So I have two boys, I have a husband. One of my boys is just more challenging. And so I was forever playing the referee.
mm,
Like, I will tell him, nope, I'll tell him. And then I'll tell him. I will go back. I was going back and forth and so forth. And I was creating more tension as a result because they could then no longer have a conversation and so forth. Then I was so afraid to be gone because how are they going to, and things would blow
right.
up and so forth. So in that same, what I called my summer of independence, where I rented office space and left each day so that they could like alter their way through, I also stopped playing the referee. And even to this day, so this has been 2 years, my husband would be like, can you tell them I need them to do this? I'm like, you have to tell them. But
Right.
I can see why he comes to me because I was always like, no, 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 no. I'll
Right.
do it. I'll do it. So we're creating, when you were saying your chief household, caretaker, we are kind of the wizard behind us. Like we are uh, creating the dynamic. And
Right.
so thus, if we need the dynamic to change for us, we do have it in our power
To
to
change
do
it.
that.
Right.
But it will, I mean, if they're always being cared for, why would they want to care for themselves? But it'll all work out.
It,
That is a small piece in the grand scheme. But I think women use especially obviously moms, use their families as their excuse. I have to put my family first.
all
I have
the
to put my
all,
family first.
all the time. One of my clients, and sad story, her husband got laid off during COVID, and she was the sole breadwinner. And I was like, okay. And she's like, well, but I can't work out anymore. Why not? I need to be on call all the time. I can't lose this job. And I was like, I'm like, so when do you hang up? Like, when's your like end time? When's your start time? What happens in between those hours? Can you take lunch? So it was like, so, the stress level of being the sole breadwinner just blinded her from everything. And I see it all the time in women is that, oh, I got to be at every baseball game. I have to be at this. I have to do this. I. And I'm like, if you sat down with your kids and said, I'm taking a 6-week course so that mommy can get a different job, I don't think there is a kid that would say, no, mom, you can't.
And I would go even further that they would be offended to think that we would even worry about that. Like, I know that everyone in my family would be, if they thought that I was making decisions based on them, would feel badly. Like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have meant for you to do that, and so
Right,
forth. We never even get it to that place. We never even get to that conversation. We already decide, oh, this isn't going to work for my family.
right. And
And
but
again, it's an excuse. Those are this because we're not willing to then, it's easy to then be like, I'll wait until they are, that's another one. I'll wait till they're in elementary school.
yeah,
I'll wait until they're in middle school. I'll wait till they're in high school. I'll wait till they're in college. At this point, like they're gone. Like we just keep moving the marker forward because we say we're not ready. And the time just isn't right. And I'm like, the perfect time and a magical unicorn is
right,
exactly the same. They don't exist. Like
right.
now is just, you know, as good a time as any.
Yeah, I feel like the excuse bin just straddles both areas, the fitness world and the actually changing your life that that you hate. And you talked about the why a bit ago. And I think that is, it's a starting point for me and it's a starting point for you. Because for me, I'm like, my why is what drives me when it's 2 degrees outside, when it's snowing outside and I don't wanna. And it's my question that I'm laying in bed and I'm like, is this going to get me to where I want to go? And that is what is my motivation. I think so many women are waiting for motivation or inspiration or someone to ring their doorbell and say, here you go. And I, as much as I say it, I'm like, I want that too. But I know that magic bus is right there with the unicorn and the rainbows and the fairies. That's not driving down my street. And the day it does, I will share it to the world. But
Exactly.
you're the fairy, you're the unicorn that has to rise up and get, for me, when I changed my job, I just had to get so freaking pissed off. Like I just had to get so mad at the like constant churn of bullshit in my job that I was like, there's more to life than this. And I don't feel like women should get to that point where like there's more to life than this.
Exactly. And I feel like so many, they get, it's, they get so angry. And for so many, a lot, your family is in there, right? Like yours was pointed at your job in itself.
Right.
But when you start pointing, like part of like, oh, I can't do this because of my family, you start to resent your family. There, your family does not want to be resented. And so you have to create a why for yourself. That's where
Yeah.
those like squishy goals on the outside of like, oh, I just want my family to be happy. Well, your family's gonna be happy if they don't ever have to do anything and they can just come and go as they please. And you know, is that really serving anyone? And so I think that that's similar to where I was saying with the women that go through my program, like they get so charged up that they have to do it. Like it
Mm,
is finding that tipping point. But as long as we stay in, I'm not ready. I'm not ready is a neutral position. We're not getting ready. We're just, to your point, waiting for the ready fairy to
mm.
come and clear our schedules and clear our minds, clean our house, and give us all the roadmap as to where we're supposed to go next. And that doesn't happen. Like nobody's coming to save us, my friends. We have to
Oh,
save ourselves. So, so yeah. And it's got to be something that's for us, and it cannot be a should. Like I should go back to work. That isn't like where shoulds show up when we're doing something for someone else, or I should stay home, or all the shoulds are always a red flag for me on, and I always tell to my clients, like, same with yours. I should walk 10,000 steps every day.
right.
And then you say, okay, so now reframe it and to say, I can walk 10,000 steps a day. I choose not to because, so that you get to that place of like, it's too hard or it's too much. And that's another thing that I think we both have in common. All of
Yeah.
these goals are big, hairy, scary, big. And if you look at it as itself, I myself have lost 160 pounds. I get it. Like you can't, if you look at that whole big thing, you're never going to do it. You're never going to do it. It
Yeah.
has to be in those tiny incremental changes. You don't have to like find a new job tomorrow. You don't have to find a new purpose tomorrow. Like it's what is the next right step to get you to where you need to go.
Yeah. And just as you described it, I feel that, because I'm like, my career, we turned it into this like, huge cloud versus just looking at the little raindrop. It's like, okay, let's just start with what do you like? And we can kind of, stair step our way to the cloud. But it's like
Exactly.
there, and it's I feel like it's just the way our education system works is that you have to define what it is that you want to be and then back your way from the end goal versus now that you've done it that way and ask yourself, did it work? Like, when you declared that you want to be an interior designer, you're like, well, yeah, that way didn't work too
Yeah.
too well. And it's like, okay, but out of all the things I've done or all the things I enjoy in my life, I'm going to start writing those things down and, start to whittle away from what I like to do versus what I can do, and maybe start with the things that, like, if I never see this on a job description ever again, I am happy as a clam.
That is a huge part of my ignitHER program, in this idea of like first kind of harvesting out of past dreams. Like, I wanted to be an interior designer. The job, as it turns out, wasn't as creative as, there's a lot of, with every job, there's a lot of that comes with the good, right? So it's going into there and like, what did I really love about it? I loved creating something out of nothing, like being able to take a challenge, like this is a problem, and design a solution to it.
Mm,
I loved being able to interact with people and be creative in my ventures and so forth. One of the jobs that I wanted to be when I grew up was a rockette.
ah,
Never had the legs for it, never going to happen. But looking back at it, and this is what we do, is like, what did you want to be when you were 10? What did you want to be when you were 15? Because there's a piece of what that was that you still want.
yeah,
So for me, for Rockette was all about, I mean, it's that synchronization, that community of women, and being able to perform. Having that opportunity. That's why I love to do speaking. I have my own podcast because I want to, so there's those pieces. It's like, my son, when he was little, wanted to be the security guard at his school. And my husband's like, oh, you can't be a security guard. Like, I have bigger plans for you. I'm like, he's 5.
right,
For him, that is protective. That is like being able to be at his school all the time, like
right,
being able to give back. That's what you look at and our child's dreams and our own child's dreams. And then start pulling those together with what are all of our own superpowers, the things that we love and why do we love them, and our mad skills. Because this is the other thing. We think, oh, well, I can't do that because I don't have a degree in that. So I'm
yeah,
going to have to go and get another certification, or I take another course. And I'm like, no, in my ignitHER program, there's no, like, we're going to find you something that does not require you to go and spend more money on a degree that nobody cares about.
right,
You have 30 years of experience doing all the things. It's about cultivating out the ones, and you made a very good flip. We make a whole list of the things that we're amazing at, and then we cross out all the ones that I'm amazing at it, but I don't want to do that anymore. And
exactly,
then, so then you can say, this is what I want to do. And so when you, like, in my program, it's like we come to our, these are my superpowers, this is what I love, and these are my skills, and this is best package. And it's like, if I could have a role that hits all of these, I mean, that's utopia, right?
yeah,
And that's doable. Like, but we always go to, oh, let me just go to the job boards and see if I fit into one of these,
right,
as opposed
exactly,
to, do they fit into what I want in my life? And so we write a job description, like, this is the job description that I'm looking for. And then you have that as a filter. And it's amazing because there's this feeling of like, oh, well, I'm at the mercy of all these other companies, as opposed to going in and like, they are freaking lucky to have you. Like,
yeah,
go in and tell them how you can change their bottom line, their culture, their camaraderie, whatever it is that you bring to the world. Plus, there's so many opportunities to take what you are amazing at. It's like you and me. We took what we're amazing at and we're doing it on our own. There's this whole like entrepreneurism, solopreneurism is a consultancy, and it isn't hard to create in the
right,
grand scheme of things. And so why not get paid for your fabulousness on your own time and your own terms?
yeah. As I, go down the realm of entrepreneurship, I define it, right? There's so many things that I get to define. And, maybe if you're like, entrepreneurship isn't for the faint of heart. So there's one, there's one. But two, if you choose not to, maybe there is that conversation with your boss to say, you know what, this is what the description looks like, but here are some other strengths that I have. Can you see me growing the role to include some of these things. And, unless you said, I want to, train monkeys on the side, I don't think most people would be like, that's horrible. Don't you think about bringing that here? If it's something that can enhance the bottom line to a company, they're probably more likely to be like, huh, never thought about it. We just literally filled out the rec because HR told us how to fill out the rec.
Exactly. And I think that comes down to self-advocacy, which is no different than those who don't want to rock the boat with their families. Same with their company. Like, this is what I was hired to do, so this is what I'm supposed to do forever.
Right.
And so we feel like we only have two choices: suck it up and stay, or leave.
Right.
And neither of them are good. So that's where knowing what you're amazing at and seeing and always looking at where you can use those to enhance the situation around you. This is within your families, within your volunteer roles, within your work roles. It's not about complaining. I think so often, and we know people are like, I hate it here. Talk to
Yeah.
their boss, I'm like, I hate it here. Well, that's not helpful for anyone. And no one wants that energy. But the energy of like, I noticed that this is never getting done correctly. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that I would be the best person to do this. One of my close friends is, she never went to college. She'll be the first to tell you that. We all have our story, right? The first
Right.
thing that we tell someone. And now she's in her 60s, has an amazing, amazing job. She runs a huge facility. Those in the Boston area, if I told you the company, you would know exactly where she works. She worked at a company as a single mom, and she was like, as an office manager, and she saw that like there was so many things around the office that weren't getting taken care of and so forth. So she wrote a job description herself,
Mm-hmm.
saying that I would like to, as the office manager, take care of this whole facility and so forth. Take care of like supplies and, if something needed to be changed or we need to order chairs, yada, yada, yada. They were like, oh my God, that's amazing. And
Right.
then from there, she reached another company to another company. And now she has a huge career in facilities management that is an enviable position that she
Created.
created from just the awareness
Right.
of this is what needs to be done. And that's where we find that why
Mm,
for people. It's like, what is the world missing? What is my world missing?
right.
So, and if you're within a company already, what is missing here? What is missing that I could fill? And then bringing it forward in a way that you're just selling how you can make it better for them. Like, yes, there'll always be the companies that are like, not doing it, can't do it. But then you decide to go and take that
You
idea
take your
somewhere
talents
else. You
elsewhere.
gave them the chance. It'll
Right.
be then you can be like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman when she goes back to the store the next day. She's like, remember when I was here and you
Right.
didn't help me? Big mistake. Huge,
Right.
huge. Then you go on and do your own thing and so forth.
Well, and it's funny because I remember when I was still in corporate, I was leaving my job and I was going to another job, and the HR person, and usually you got like, for some reason I got the VP of HR. Usually they give you like some underling and you spend like 20 minutes like, it wasn't a good fit, and whatever your tap dance is. So the head of HR like was like doing mine. I'm like, oh, is Sarah out sick? Like, I was just like, why am I talking to you? And he's like, oh no, he's like, you're an integral part of this company. I was like, all right, check your face, Kim, because I'm like, that you're full of shit right now. And so I said, and he goes, so seriously, Kim, he's like, you've been here like 3.5 years, and he's like, you do a great job. Like, why are you leaving? He's like, he's like, you've never been in my office. There's never been any, scuttlebutt about you. And I said, I'm like, the job doesn't offer me what I want to do. And he looked at me like, what do you mean? And I told them, I'm like, I didn't want to travel as much anymore. I would easily come up with ways to make it so that I didn't physically have to be there. and I would be on call during those times, but I didn't physically have to, I don't want to fly 100,000 miles anymore. And he was like, oh, and he's like, so that's all it would have taken? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, that seems pretty fixable. I'm like, apparently not. And it was just like, in my head, I'm like, it was fixable. I gave you solutions, but you chose that, like, the person in my role physically needs to get on a plane every 2 to 3 days to do bullshit stuff that I don't need to do. A salesperson can easily get a box and a set of instructions and do exactly what I did. And I would save you money on my money flying me, hotel, food, but you'd rather lose me completely to not have me fly. And you never know. I was Pretty Woman. It was like it was that easy to save you.
Yeah, exactly. But also in your situation, you had brought that up. But there's so many times when I feel like people are leaving companies and they're like, when they're having that conversation, that you're like, well, you never said anything. It's like, that's on us. Like, self-advocating is not our strength,
Right.
as a gender, is just not.
Yeah.
um
And I look back at that time and I was like, I had some balls on me. Like I was a 35-year-old woman, right? I was like, like I was like, it's still like the like young tier in my job. And I was like, God, I had some balls. Like I literally was just like, I was so sick of like, I never bought groceries. I never could make plans. I was just like, so like, this is like, I was having that, is this my life moment? And I'm like, okay, I'm like, is there a way? Is there a way? Is there a way? And it was just, and and when you have those thoughts, sometimes you can easily talk your way out of it. It's like, what if I get fired? I'm like, at this point I wasn't married. So I had no, like, if I lost this job, I was like, well, Starbucks. Like that was what I'm like, I can make a coffee, I think. Um, but it was like, I just look back at some of like the ballsy stuff that I did that I didn't have the words for it back then, but I was just getting so frustrated, and I was like, I could either fix this, or if all they could do is say no. And if they said no, what's the worst thing I had to do? Find a new job?
exactly. And that's that same fire, the same fire that you had to get to that place to be able to advocate, is that same fire that I want everyone to like build up to, like, I have to do this. I
Yeah.
have to move forward. I can't, it's like seeing a crack in the ceiling, like see a crack and you're like, now I can't unsee that.
Right.
Like
Now, every time you
every
walk
time
in
I
that
walk into
room,
this room, all I can see is that freaking thing. That's what I want. If anyone today listening is just like, oh, I am not living wholly in my life.
yeah.
Like, my wheel is a little on the wacky side. I am all family, all like putting it into my work, but I myself don't feel fully whole. And that's the thing. You can do something about it. You're not a tree. You can get up and move, and and you can move forward, and you can go back to work, and you can find a new job, and you can excel within your, it's about, again, switching out of that I'm not ready, and what does ready look like? Like, that's the other
Yeah.
thing. I think there's a
I
visualization
love that. What does ready look
look
like?
like, because, and how does it feel, and how does it, because again, when we just say I'm not ready, you're like, oh, you're not ready, like, oh yeah, like, again, we go to like, because ready, clearly I can't be this exhausted and this overworked and this, and so forth, but there's no discussion of like, what would that look like? And then again, backing it up, if that's what ready looks like, what do I need to do incrementally to get ready? And I also think that everyone needs to put it in their timeline. We need
Yeah.
to we need to put a pin in this map. Like, we have to have a time that we're going to get there, because this whole like, when my kids this, like, no, I want a date,
Right.
and that you can work back from. If you don't have, you know, like, if you ran track, if there wasn't a finish line, you would just run and run and run
Right.
and
You'd be
run and run, and
running
you're going
that
to run
oval,
yourself ragged.
running that
Exactly.
oval till your legs fell off.
Exactly. So what? when are you going to, you don't have to be ready tomorrow. Like there's always this piece of, yes, I'm not ready. Like you don't have to be ready tomorrow, but
Right.
how can we get you, when does this,
Let's put a start date on this.
exactly. You have to put it into your timeline and you have to visualize what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, and how you will know that
Yes.
you're there. Like, what is it like? Not just like, oh, I'm going to feel energized. Like, no, literally, like, what will you see? Like, is it this on your schedule? Is it that, like, what
Right.
tangibly can you see so that you know you've gotten there? Because it's no different than, you know, every time we meet with our financial planner and he's like, oh, you're on track. You're on track. And my husband will work until he's dead because it'll never be enough. Right.
Yep.
So he keeps moving. So it is for, I'm not ready to retire. I'm not ready to leave this volunteer role. I'm not ready to change jobs. I'm not ready to go back to work. It doesn't make a difference. It's that same, like, we keep just pushing that timeline further and further out because that's safer. That's more comfortable and I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah. And it's, and I like that because I also hear the same thing, with people talking about, okay, rewind. I just totally lost my train of thought. I liken it to sports season. Like we talked about track. I always talk to my clients about seasons. And, if I look at my family and if I'm using my family as my, oh, it's not the right time. Like, look at what your season is. Maybe you have kids who they're in baseball and from April through May, you're carting them off to practices. Great. Then April and May, we're not going to talk to you. But when the season is over June 1st, what's the plan? It's like, where can we put you in? Because I think about, like, football. I'm dating this episode. I usually don't like to do that, but it works for this occasion. Football season's over. So if you are a football player, you have nothing to do on your schedule until August. Your schedule is wide open. So during that, like, downtime, that off season, you have plenty of time to get something done. But don't call me in August through February because that's my busy season. So I always, as in this way, like, ask yourself, like, what does, like, if you, I'm not ready, well, what does ready look like for you? Let's start to define that. Now that we have a definition, when can we start to put the steps into motion to kind of get you closer and closer to your goal? And if you're like, well, my kids, I'm like, when's the less busy time for them? And then slot it in there. And that way, as you can show your kids, like, hey, you're busy too, so's mom, right? We're gonna work this. We're gonna figure this out so that we can have that meshing point.
And I think we so often think like, you know, to do the thing, whatever it is, I need this much
Yes,
gigantic amount of time. And you'll never find that in your schedule.
never.
Even in that, yes, maybe in a, in the football analogy, but then they've put off their whole life, right? During football season. So now they're cramming all the things in, to the off times. It's no different than, you and I think both probably combat the concept like, well, I can't do it because, Thanksgiving's coming. And
Oh,
then we got the holidays and then January, I'm kind of exhausted. And then we have February to like May
right.
is
And then it's
when,
summer.
and then it's summer and then the school's starting
Yeah.
and then it's like, and so forth. So it is that concept of like, what is the least amount of time that we can schedule that you will always have
Mm,
every single day? And then how can we break the big down to that amount so that, because we are all recovering perfectionists. We all like, it's all or nothing. If I can't redo my entire resume from top to bottom today, I'm not even going to start. I'm not
right.
even going to do one sentence. It's like, and we're never going to have what our mind thinks that we need for the big thing. And it's similar to, well, I used to run marathons. And so if I can't run 10 miles, then what's the
Why
point?
run?
Yeah. Whereas I'm like, put your shoes on and just go outside. today we're just going to put our shoes on. Like when I'm asking my clients to just break down, I use that as an example. Nobody am I working with is training for a marathon. But there's that piece of like, if you were like, you don't just go out and like run 26 miles. Like, do you have sneakers? Do you have sneakers? Like that's the smallest incremental step. They're already like going over Heartbreak Hill. They can't think of anything else.
Yeah. And I love everything that we've been talking about. It's that, the big thing, and I love that like our worlds cross in that like fitness as well as career here. It's like, what is it that you really want to do? Like start to just brainstorm, like let yourself free think. Don't feel like it has to fit into this like niche, this career. It's just like write it all down because it might come up to be like you're going to be a dog groomer and that has never ever popped up in your world before,
Exactly.
and I know that don't come at me human design people, but I know that people will do like the human design or the Myers-Briggs or all that stuff. Like I'm so all of that has a place. I feel it does have a place, but nothing is going to get you clearer than grabbing a piece of paper and just sitting down and giving yourself 20, 30 minutes to just be like, this is what I love, this is what I hate. Like nothing is going to give you more than that. And don't be afraid to say, I hate. If you said, I'm never going to, I hate filing. I mean, most people are paperless now. I hate filing. If I ever saw a job that said filing required, hard no.
Exactly.
So it's like we all have those hard no's. Like if I had to go back to a job where I flew 100,000 miles a year, hard no. Right. So it's like, just think about all the things that you did in your job that got you to the point where you're like, ah, screw this, or to the jobs that like things that light you up. Maybe you like planning things and doing things, and maybe you become the chief planner for someone. I don't know. Or the facilities person who's like, hey, I saw all these holes in the facility. And trust me, I've worked for places where we had shitty facility people. And then I've worked for a place you had great facility people. And it's like night and day. Those people are like the angels that are going to the fast lane to heaven.
Exactly. They're the unsung heroes of you only notice them when they're missing and that you
Right.
need
When
them.
the good ones leave, you're like, hey, how come this isn't happening anymore? Sarah left, and you're like, Sarah was awesome.
Exactly. And I would say when they're focusing on what they love, I always am like, what are the name 10 things that you love to do? And they'll be like, oh, I love yoga. They're like, but I'm not going to be a yoga teacher. I'm like, that's not what this is about. Unless
Right.
it is. Like, it might be that that's what you want to do. But what do you love about yoga?
Yeah.
I love to feel centered. I love to feel strong. So then we make a list of the why you love. So I love filing for those. I have one woman who's like, I love doing laundry. God love you, my friend.
Yeah.
But it is like there's a beginning and an end. She loves being able to control the whole situation. She loves to have everything orderly. Like, so notice why you love things because you can then create a role around order and organization and being centered and strong without ever doing laundry or or doing yoga. It's about why you love something. So it's taking, with every question, it's always asking one more question. Why? Why will always get you to the root of so much.
Perfect. Perfect. So this has been such a great conversation, and I love the synergies that we've had between each other. And so, I always ask my participants in the podcast, what's one thing that makes you feel magical?
So for me, I have a huge love and affinity to morning pages, which are three
Oh,
pages
mm-hmm.
of stream of consciousness writing every morning. And it is how I tap into my intuition. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we don't like to quiet our minds because then comes all of the
The
crazy
noise.
talk and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. And so we stay in busy and so forth. And that is 20 minutes of my day that I get quiet and I just write and write and write. And to feel that connection to what my knowing is wanting me to do and pointing me and finding the answers. Like I'll be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about this offer. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this client. And it always comes. And that, to know that I can tap into that any given day is like, is pure magic.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. I love asking this question. 'Cause I get so many different responses when I ask that question. And so where can people find you on the socials?
So all of my socials are at just Jennessa, so Juse, and then Jennessa is Jennessa. And yeah, so that's, and I am on all of them at the same, with the same.
And I just, don't worry, folks, I spelt it here, so don't worry about it, that you're like, wait, was there two N's, two
Exactly.
E's? I have, I've already spelled it and I've linked it in the show notes. And also you mentioned that you have a program. Is that open to anybody?
Absolutely. So my program is an 8-week small group program called ignitHER. And it is a program for everyone that we just talked about. The, oh my gosh, I'm not living a whole life. I don't know where I want to go. I know there's more for me. And it's all of the structure, support, accountability, and a crap ton of exercises that are all about conjuring up our dreams. And so I have a special link for your guests to get early access to the next cohort that's not open yet and a discount. So I can send that off to you.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So all of this again is going to be in the show notes. And it's even if you're not at that like that, oh my God, get me the hell out of here moment. I feel that all of us can take a reassessment. My husband is going to retire soon, and I'm like, you're not staying home all day. You need to figure out something. I don't know what you got to do, but you got to figure out something. So, even if you're at that point of like, what's my next chapter look like? It's a perfect opportunity. And, I'd rather you have that time where you have a little bit more space and you're not in the like, oh my God, I have to find something tomorrow.
Exactly, because
Headspace.
there's a lot of fear that comes with that. And there
Yeah.
is that like, oh, I have, so it's lovely to have a little bit more space around it so that you truly can just play.
Yeah. All right, magic makers, absolutely look her up. If you have questions or something resonated with you in this episode, do me a favor, screenshot this and tag both of us in the socials. All right, magic makers, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you next week.